The blue holographic display lit up the dark chamber as 23 alien representatives leaned forward in their seats. Above them, the three-dimensional image of Earth rotated slowly. The planet's blue oceans and swirling white clouds looked peaceful from this distance. Vzalthair, the chief scientist of the Galactic Council, pointed a long, slender finger at the display. After 50 years of observation, my team has reached a conclusion about the humans, he said. His voice was calm but firm. They fear war. Murmurs echoed around the chamber. The council members exchanged glances. This was good news. Show us the evidence, requested High Counselor Vexma. Her scaled skin shimmered in the dim light. Vzalthair nodded and waved his hand. The display changed to show scenes from Earth's history. 200 years ago, humans fought constantly. They created weapons that could destroy their entire planet. But look at the past 50 years. The images shifted to show peace talks, disarmament ceremonies, and international cooperation. Global conflicts have decreased by 78%. Nuclear weapons are being dismantled. They choose talking over fighting whenever possible. What about their entertainment? Asked another counselor. I heard they enjoy stories about violence. Yes, but that appears to be how they channel their aggressive instincts. Vzalthair explained. They prefer to imagine conflict rather than engage in it. This suggests a species that has evolved beyond its violent past. High Counselor Vexma stood up. She was tall and imposing. Then it is decided. Earth is ready for first contact. Their fear of war makes them suitable to join our peaceful collective. The vote was unanimous. The Galactic Council would welcome Earth into their fold. Lieutenant Jack Howard yawned as he walked through the quiet corridors of the Vigilant Shield space station. His boots made soft tapping sounds on the metal floor. The defense station orbited Earth silently, one of 12 such stations that formed humanity's first line of space defense. Anything interesting on the sensors today? Jack asked as he entered the monitoring room. Chief Operator Lisa Patel shook her head. Her eyes never left the screens in front of her. Same as yesterday. Quiet as a... Wait. She leaned forward suddenly. I'm picking up something strange. Jack moved quickly to her side. What is it? An anomaly at the edge of our detection range. Lisa's fingers flew over the controls. It's not matching any known signature pattern. Jack watched as the blip on the screen grew slightly larger. Natural phenomenon. No. Lisa shook her head firmly. It's changing course. Natural objects don't do that. Jack reached for the communication panel. This is Lieutenant Howard requesting Commander Rivera immediately. Within minutes, Commander Susan Rivera entered the monitoring room. She was a tall woman with short gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. Report, she said simply. Jack pointed to the screen. Unknown object approaching Earth orbit, ma'am. It's large and it's definitely underpowered flight. Commander Rivera studied the readings. Her face remained calm, but Jack noticed her shoulders tense. How long until it reaches Earth orbit? Approximately 12 hours at current speed, Lisa answered. Alert status yellow, Rivera ordered. I want all stations on heightened alert, but keep this quiet. No need to panic the civilians yet. She turned to Jack. Howard, I want continuous monitoring. If that thing sneezes, I want to know about it. Yes, Mom, Jack replied. As Jack took his position at the monitoring station, he couldn't shake a feeling of unease. Throughout human history, first contact scenarios rarely ended well for the less advanced civilization. Now, something was coming from the stars, and despite all of Earth's defenses, Jack wondered if they were truly ready. Outside, the strange object continued its approach, silent and purposeful. The Galactic Council's assessment was about to be tested. Humans might fear war, but they would soon discover if that fear was enough to keep them safe in a universe suddenly much larger than they had imagined. The Council ship entered Earth's atmosphere with a grace that defied its massive size. It glowed blue against the morning sky as it descended toward the United Nations headquarters in New York. Thousands of people gathered in the streets below, their faces a mixture of fear and wonder. Police barriers held back the crowds as military jets circled overhead. Inside the UN building, world leaders sat in tense silence. Ambassador Key Lorne would arrive in minutes. This alien, the first to officially visit Earth, represented 23 different species from across the galaxy. Dr. Alice Warren checked her translation device one more time. As Earth's top xenolinguist, she had been studying the language samples the aliens had sent ahead. Her hands trembled slightly. "Are you ready?" asked Secretary General William Carter. Alice nodded. "As ready as I'll ever be." The large doors at the end of the assembly hall opened. A tall figure entered, flanked by 6 smaller aliens of different shapes and colors. Ambassador Key Lorne stood nearly 8 feet tall. His skin was pale blue, and 4 arms emerged from his slender torso. His large eyes scanned the room. Alice stepped forward with Carter. She activated her translation device and spoke the greeting phrase she had practiced for weeks. Key Lorne's mouth formed what might have been a smile. He responded in his musical language, and Alice's device translated. "The Galactic Council greets Earth with peace and friendship." Over the next hour, Key Lorne addressed the assembly. His message was simple. The Council had watched Earth for decades and admired how humans had moved away from warfare. Because of this, Earth was being invited to join the galactic community. "Your species fears war," Key Lorne said through the translator. "This makes you valuable allies. We will share technology, medicine, and knowledge with you. In return, we ask only for peace and cooperation." The assembly erupted in applause. Treaties were signed. Earth had officially joined the galaxy. Jack Howard sat in his brother's living room in Washington, D.C., watching the historic broadcast on television. His 2-week leave from the Vigilant Shield had come at the perfect time. Or perhaps the worst time, depending on how you looked at it. "What do you think?" asked Frank Howard, returning from the kitchen with 2 beers. Jack took one without looking away from the screen. "I think it's too good to be true." Frank sat down heavily on the couch. "Always the suspicious one." "Someone has to be," Jack replied. He pointed at the screen where Key Lorne was shaking hands with world leaders. "They're giving us advanced technology and asking for almost nothing in return. That doesn't make sense." "Maybe they're just nice," Frank suggested. Jack snorted. "No advanced civilization gives away their advantages without getting something valuable in return. That's not how the universe works." Later that night, aboard the Council ship in orbit around Earth, Ambassador Key Lorne met with his advisors in a secure chamber. All translation devices were turned off. "The humans believe our story," Key Lorne said in their native tongue. "They are naive," replied Zultek, the military advisor. "They think we came here because we admire their peaceful ways." Key Lorne's upper arms made a dismissive gesture. "Let them believe it. The truth would only complicate matters." "When will you tell them about the Scarvul?" asked another advisor. "Not yet," Key Lorne said firmly. "First, we secure the hyperspace junction. Earth sits on the most strategic point in this sector of the galaxy. If the Scarvul claim it before we do, we lose our advantage in the coming conflict." "And the humans?" Key Lorne studied a holographic map of Earth's solar system. "They have a saying, 'Keep your friends close.' We will be very close friends with the humans. We will give them enough technology to make them grateful, but not enough to make them dangerous." He zoomed in on Earth. "And if the Scarvul do come here, the humans will fight to protect their home while we secure our interests." "So they are shields," Zultek said with a sound like laughter. "No," Key Lorne corrected. "They are pawns, and they don't even know the game has begun." 6 months after first contact, Earth had changed in ways no one could have imagined. New medicines cured diseases that had once been deadly. Clean energy powered cities that once depended on fossil fuels. The global economy boomed as Council technology created new industries overnight. Secretary General William Carter smiled as he walked through the new United Nations Galactic Affairs building. Large windows showed the skyline of New York, now dotted with sleek towers of alien design. "The Council has transformed our world," Carter said to the reporters following him. "This partnership proves what can be achieved through peace." But not everyone shared his optimism. In her small office at MIT, Dr. Alice Warren frowned at her computer screen. For months, she had been studying the Council's historical archives. They had given Earth access to some of their records as a gesture of goodwill. But Alice had noticed something strange. "That can't be right," she muttered. She compared two documents side by side. One described how the Council had welcomed the peaceful Centauri species 50 years ago. The other, buried deep in technical reports, mentioned the absorption of Centauri resistance. Alice had found similar discrepancies about 7 other species. All had been described as peaceful partners in official records. All showed evidence of military action in technical documents. Her phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. "Dr. Warren, it's Jack Howard." Alice straightened in her chair. She had met Jack 3 months ago when he was assigned as military liaison to the Council delegation. "Lieutenant Howard, what can I do for you?" "We need to talk," Jack said, his voice low. "Not over the phone. Can you meet me at the Harvard Museum in an hour?" Jack paced near the dinosaur exhibit, checking his watch every few minutes. When Alice finally arrived, he led her to a quiet corner away from other visitors. "Have you noticed the positioning of the Council ships?" he asked without greeting. Alice blinked, surprised by the direct question. "What do you mean?" "They started with 5 ships in Earth orbit. Now there are 14. They're not random. They're in positions that could disable our defense systems in minutes." Alice thought about her own discoveries. "I found something too, in their historical records." "Tell me later," Jack interrupted. "My brother is waiting for us." They took a cab to a small apartment in Cambridge. Frank Howard opened the door before they knocked. "Did anyone follow you?" he asked, peering past them into the hallway. "No," Jack said. "This is Dr. Warren." Frank nodded and closed the door behind them. The apartment walls were covered with papers, maps, and printouts. "What is all this?" Alice asked. "History," Frank said. "I've been analyzing Council diplomatic records going back 300 years. There's a pattern." He pointed to a timeline on the wall. Every species they welcomed followed the same path. First contact, technology exchange, defense integration, then something called protective oversight. And then, Alice asked. Frank's face was grim. Then those species stopped making their own decisions. They become Council territories in everything but name. Jack moved to a window and looked out at the city. Admiral Rivera thinks the same thing is happening here. The Council ships. A loud beeping interrupted him. All 3 of their phones activated at once, displaying an emergency alert. "Unknown ship detected at edge of solar system," Jack read aloud. "All military personnel returned to stations immediately." Frank turned on the television. The emergency broadcast showed grainy footage of a massive dark ship just beyond Pluto's orbit. Its design was completely different from the Council ships. "Citizens are advised to remain calm," the announcer said. "The Council has identified this as a Scarvol scout vessel. Council defense forces have engaged the intruder." The video showed bright flashes as Council ships fired on the unknown vessel. Within seconds, the Scarvol ship exploded in a ball of light. "How convenient," Jack said quietly. "Now they have a reason to take over our defenses completely." Alice stared at the screen, her face pale. "What do we do?" "We find proof," Jack said, "before it's too late." The emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council was tense. Ambassador Keylorn stood at the center of the room, his 4 arms spread wide in a gesture of concern. "The Scarvol are the most dangerous species in this sector of the galaxy," he said. "They do not negotiate. They do not show mercy. The scout ship we destroyed was only the beginning." Secretary General Carter leaned forward. "What do they want?" "Your planet sits on a valuable hyperspace junction," Keylorn explained. They will take it by force if we allow them. We have our own defenses, said the Russian representative. Keylorn made a sound like gentle laughter. Your weapons would be like stones against their ships. The Council offers protection, but we must act quickly. He displayed a hologram showing Earth surrounded by Council battleships. We need control of your orbital defense platforms and military bases. This is the only way to ensure your safety. The room erupted in argument. Some nations were ready to accept protection at any cost. Others refused to give up their sovereignty. In a secured room deep beneath the Pentagon, Admiral Susan Rivera met with military leaders from 12 countries. The room was swept for listening devices every 15 minutes. The Council is using this Scarvul threat to take control of our planet, Rivera said. We need to be ready to act. With what? Asked General Chen of China. Their technology is 100 years ahead of ours. Maybe not, Rivera replied. She nodded to Jack Howard, who connected a secure drive to the room's display system. Jack stood before the gathered officers. 3 weeks ago, I was part of the team investigating the destroyed Scarvul ship. The Council provided us with debris samples to study. He displayed images of twisted metal fragments. Dr. Warren discovered something interesting in the wreckage. Alice worked frantically in her lab at MIT. The Council had declared the campus a research partnership zone, which meant there were always aliens around. Today, she needed privacy. She carefully placed a small device on her translation unit. Frank had built it based on ancient radio jamming technology, something so old that the Council might not detect it. The translation screen flickered, then displayed new text. Alice gasped. The Council's assessment of humans didn't say they feared war. The actual phrase translated as, humans fear war, but make it an art form when pushed. Alice quickly downloaded the real translations of hundreds of Council documents. The truth was far different from what they had been told. The Scarvul weren't aggressors. They were another species fighting against Council control. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jack. Did it work? Yes, she typed back. The Council has been lying about everything. The Scarvul attack was staged. Frank Howard sat in the Library of Congress, surrounded by old military history books. He had been there for 2 days, barely sleeping. A librarian approached his table. We're closing soon, sir. Frank nodded without looking up. He was comparing Council conquest patterns with Earth military history. Something had been bothering him about the way the Council operated. They were too predictable, too systematic. Then he saw it. The pattern. The Council used the same strategy for every planet. Identify a weakness, exploit it through fear, then offer protection that became control. But they had made a mistake with Earth. They thought humans feared war so much they would give up freedom for safety. Frank grabbed his phone and called Jack. I found it. The Council's fundamental error. What is it? Jack asked. They think our fear of war is a weakness, Frank said. They don't understand that we fear war because we're so good at it. Ambassador Keylorn stood before the full United Nations Assembly. Behind him, a massive screen showed Council battleships moving into position around Earth. The Scarvul fleet will arrive within days, he announced. We must take control of your defense systems immediately. Those who resist will be left unprotected. From her seat near the back, Alice watched world leaders mumble among themselves. Many looked afraid. Some looked angry. Secretary General Carter approached the podium. And if we refuse? Keylorn's 4 arms spread wide. Then I regret there will be consequences. We cannot allow this strategic position to fall to our enemies. One way or another, the Council will secure Earth. The ultimatum had been delivered. Earth's choice was clear. Submit or face destruction. In the gallery, Alice quietly sent a text to Jack and Frank. He just threatened Earth directly. We're out of time. Alice sat alone in her darkened office, the glow of her computer screen lighting her tired face. For 3 days straight, she had been working on the Council's secure communication system. The small device Frank built had given her access to their real messages, not the carefully edited versions shared with humans. "Got you," she whispered as a new file opened. It was a full report on the Scarvol, complete with images and historical data. She read quickly, her eyes widening. The Scarvol weren't aggressive invaders. They were refugees. Their home system had been taken over by the Council a century ago. Those who refused to submit had fled, living as nomads among the stars. The Council had been hunting them down ever since, calling them pirates and terrorists. Alice downloaded everything to a secure drive. As she worked, alerts began flashing on her screen. The Council's security system had detected her intrusion. She grabbed her phone and the drive, then ran for the door. She had to reach Jack and Frank before the Council found her. Across the world, Council ships descended toward major cities. In Washington, D.C., New York, Beijing, Moscow, and dozens of other locations, alien troops began what they called a protective occupation. They took control of military bases, power plants, and communication centers. Most governments had agreed to the Council's demands. A few had resisted but quickly surrendered when Council ships demonstrated their weapons by vaporizing empty buildings. At the Pentagon, Council representatives entered Admiral Rivera's office only to find it empty. In fact, the entire command center had been abandoned. Military personnel had vanished from their posts worldwide just hours before the Council's occupation began. Ambassador Keylorn stood in the empty White House Situation Room, his forearms twitching with irritation. "Where are they?" he demanded. "Where have all their military leaders gone?" His aide checked a data tablet. "Unknown, Ambassador. They appear to have executed a coordinated disappearance. Nearly 50,000 key personnel worldwide are missing." "Find them," Keylorn ordered. "They cannot hide an entire military command structure." Jack Howard piloted a small spacecraft through the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. The craft had no markings and ran with minimal power to avoid detection. Behind him sat a nervous Frank and an exhausted Alice. "Are you sure about this?" Frank asked. "Meeting with the Scarvol could be a trap." "Admiral Rivera confirmed their signal," Jack replied. "And Alice's data proves they're not what the Council claims." Their ship approached a large asteroid. What looked like a natural formation from a distance was actually a hidden base. A narrow opening appeared in the rock face, and Jack guided their craft inside. The landing bay was dimly lit and crowded with unusual ships. A group of tall, muscular aliens with ridged foreheads waited for them. Their skin was dark purple, and they wore simple clothing without insignia or rank. "That's them," Alice whispered. "The Scarvol." The leader stepped forward as they exited their ship. "I am Rekthar," he said in surprisingly good English. "We thank you for coming." Jack nodded cautiously. "I'm Lieutenant Howard. This is Dr. Warren and Frank Howard. We represent Admiral Rivera." Rekthar gestured for them to follow. "Come, there is much to discuss and little time." He led them through tunnels carved into the asteroid until they reached a large chamber. Inside, a holographic display showed the solar system with Council ship positions marked in red. "For 300 years, we have fought the Council's expansion," Rekthar explained. "They find peaceful worlds, manufacture threats, offer protection, then take control. They have conquered half the galaxy this way. Why did you come to our system?" Alice asked. "To warn you," Rekthar said. "But we were too late. The Council detected our advanced scouts and destroyed them to create their false attack." Frank studied the tactical display. "How many ships do you have?" "Not enough," Rekthar admitted. "The Council overwhelms us with numbers." Jack's communicator beeped. He read the message and smiled for the first time in days. "What is it?" Alice asked. "Admiral Rivera has activated Protocol Thunderbolt," Jack said. "Earth just started fighting back." On the holographic display, dozens of new lights appeared in Earth orbit. What the Council had thought were ordinary communication satellites were actually disguised weapon platforms. and they had just powered up. Ambassador Keylorn watched in disbelief as the first Council ship exploded in Earth's orbit. The hidden defense platforms had struck without warning, their energy beams cutting through advanced shields as if they were paper. "Impossible," he muttered. "Their technology is too primitive for this." His aide approached cautiously. "Ambassador, we're detecting unusual energy signatures from the platforms. They appear to be using a modified version of our own weapons technology." Keylorn's forearms clenched in rage. "They reverse-engineered our systems in just 6 months." "It appears so," the aide replied. "And they've made improvements." On screens throughout the Council Command Center, more explosions bloomed in the silence of space. Earth's hidden defense system was systematically targeting Council ships in precise, coordinated strikes. "Launch all remaining battleships," Keylorn ordered. "Destroy those platforms." Frank Howard sat at a computer terminal in the Scarville asteroid base, broadcasting a message to every screen on Earth. His face appeared on televisions, phones, and computers worldwide. "Citizens of Earth," he began, "the Galactic Council has lied to us from the beginning. They are not our protectors. They are invaders who have conquered dozens of peaceful worlds through deception." He explained everything. The Council's pattern of manufactured threats, the truth about the Scarville, and how Earth had been targeted because of its strategic location. "Earth's military forces are not defeated," Frank continued. "They went into hiding to prepare our response. The battle for our freedom has begun." In a hidden bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, Admiral Rivera stood in a new command center surrounded by military leaders from around the world. Large screens showed the ongoing space battle. "The satellite defense network is performing better than expected," she said. "Phase 1 is complete. Begin Phase 2. Around the world, hidden human forces emerged to attack Council ground troops. The aliens had expected easy occupation of empty military bases. Instead, they found themselves fighting against an enemy that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere. The Council expected us to either surrender completely or fight conventionally," Rivera explained to her officers. "They don't understand guerrilla warfare. Their military doctrine has no concept of." A general from India nodded. "They fight like machines, predictable and inflexible." "Exactly," Rivera said. "And we're about to become very unpredictable." Jack Howard led a small fleet of 12 Earth ships toward Mars. The vessels were a mix of human and Scarville design, hastily assembled over the past weeks. In the command ship's meeting room, Jack briefed the mission team. "The Council has a supply depot in Mars orbit," he explained, pointing to a holographic map. "They don't expect us to know about it, and they don't expect us to attack it." "How did we find it?" asked a pilot. "Dr. Warren decoded their logistics network," Jack answered. "They're completely dependent on it. Take out their supplies, and their occupation forces will be stranded." Alice entered the room, carrying a data tablet. "I just got confirmation from Rekthar. The Scarville fleet is moving into position to attack Council supply lines in the outer system. They'll strike at the same time we do." Jack nodded. "Let's move out. We launch in 30 minutes." On his flagship over Earth, Keylorn received increasingly desperate reports. Half the Council fleet had been destroyed or disabled. Ground forces were under constant attack by enemies they couldn't find. Supply ships were not responding to communications. "This is impossible," he said, pacing the command deck. "They are primitives. How are they doing this?" An officer approached with a new report. "We've intercepted their communications, Ambassador. It appears they had military contingency plans in place before we even arrived." "What kind of plans?" Keylorn demanded. "They call it Protocol Thunderbolt. It's a complete strategy for resistance against technologically superior invaders. According to our intelligence, they developed it decades ago." Keylorn stopped pacing. "Decades, before they even knew about alien life." "Yes, Ambassador. They created these plans as fiction, as theoretical exercises, but the plans were detailed enough to implement when needed." Keylorn stared at the battle displays, finally understanding the Council's fundamental error. Humans didn't fear war because they were weak. They feared it because they understood it so well. And now, the Council was learning just how creative humans could be when fighting for their survival. Jack's small fleet approached the Mars Orbital Supply Depot. The massive Council station floated silently against the red planet below. Only a handful of guard ships patrolled nearby. They really didn't expect anyone to find this place, Jack said from the command chair. Attack pattern Delta. Remember, target their fuel cells first. The Earth ships spread out and accelerated toward the station. Council guards spotted them too late. By the time they raised shields, 3 human vessels had already fired their newly designed weapons. The results shocked even Jack. The Council shields flickered and died completely. The Council ships had no defense against weapons that used their own technology in ways they had never imagined. "How is this possible?" asked one of Jack's officers. Dr. Warren figured it out, Jack explained. The Council's weapons technology is all about power. Ours is about precision. We combine both. The battle lasted just 15 minutes. When it ended, the Council supply depot was an expanding cloud of debris, and their guard ships were disabled and drifting. "All ships report," Jack ordered. One by one, the fleet captains checked in. They had lost 2 ships, but most crews had escaped in life pods. Against a Council force, it was an unbelievable victory. Jack's communication officer called out, "Sir, incoming message from Admiral Rivera." Rivera's face appeared on the main screen. "Excellent work, Lieutenant. The Scarville fleet has also succeeded in their attack on the Jupiter supply lines. The Council occupation forces are now cut off." "What's our next move?" Jack asked. "Return to Earth," Rivera said. "It's time for Phase 3. Alice sat in a makeshift lab aboard the Scarville asteroid base. Around her, screens displayed signals from 7 different alien species. With Rekthar's help, she had established contact with other worlds fighting against Council control. "The translation is working," she said, adjusting controls on her device. "They can all understand each other now." Rekthar nodded. For centuries, the Council controlled all communication between species. They manipulated our words, made us fear each other. Now we speak directly. A reptilian face appeared on the main screen. "This is Commander Zorax of Proxima Centauri. We have begun our uprising against Council forces in our system." Another alien, with blue skin and 6 eyes, appeared on a different screen. "Taw City has cut off Council supply routes in our sector." One by one, representatives from different worlds reported similar actions. What had started as Earth's defense had sparked a galactic rebellion. "It's working," Alice whispered. "The alliance is forming." Frank Howard worked with military historians from around the world in a secured facility under the Alps. They studied ancient battle tactics, guerrilla warfare methods, and asymmetric conflict strategies. "The Council's weakness is their predictability," Frank told the group. "They've relied on technological superiority for so long they've forgotten how to adapt." He pointed to diagrams showing Council battle formations. Their ships always maintain the same patterns. Their ground troops follow fixed protocols. Once you understand their rules, you can break them. A historian from Egypt nodded. "Like the Battle of Kadesh, when Ramses I used a simple deception to defeat a superior Hittite force." "Exactly," Frank said. "Or like the American colonists defeating British forces by refusing to fight in traditional formations." Together, they continued developing strategies that would confuse and defeat the rigid Council military. On his flagship, now hiding behind Earth's moon, Ambassador Key Lorne watched his invasion crumble. Council ground forces were being picked off by human resistance fighters. His fleet was in ruins. Supply lines were cut. "Send the message to High Command," he ordered his communications officer. "Request immediate reinforcements. All available ships." "Yes, Ambassador. But it will take at least 2 weeks for them to arrive." Key Lorne's 4 arms twitched nervously. "By then, we may have lost everything." An explosion rocked the ship. Alarms blared as officers shouted reports. "We're under attack," yelled the tactical officer. "Multiple human ships coming from behind the moon." "Impossible," Keylorn shouted. "How did they find us?" On the command deck's main screen, a familiar face appeared. Admiral Susan Rivera looked directly at Keylorn. "Ambassador," she said calmly, "I believe it's time we discussed your surrender." 1 month after Earth's victory over Keylorn's forces, representatives from 12 species gathered in the rebuilt United Nations Hall in New York. Humans sat alongside Scarvol, Centauri, and other races that had broken free from Council control. Jack Howard stood at a window, watching the diverse crowd. He wore a new uniform with the insignia of the Free Species Alliance. Alice joined him, carrying data tablets for the upcoming session. "Hard to believe it's only been 6 weeks since first contact," she said. Jack nodded. "And just 3 weeks since the Council's reinforcements arrived." That had been the greatest test. When 50 Council battleships had appeared at the edge of the solar system, even Admiral Rivera had worried they might lose everything. But by then, the rebellion had spread to 20 systems. The Council fleet found itself attacked from all sides by former subjects using human tactics. "The reports from the Council homeworld are confirmed," Alice said, checking her tablet. "Their government is in chaos. 3 more member species have broken away to join our alliance." "And Keylorn?" Jack asked. "Still in custody, but cooperating. Frank says he's providing valuable intelligence." Inside the main chamber, Admiral Rivera called the meeting to order. Representatives from all 12 free species took their seats. On a large screen, 8 more species joined virtually from distant systems. "The Free Species Alliance is now officially established," Rivera announced. "Each member maintains its sovereignty while joining in mutual defense and cooperation." A Scarvol representative stood. "For centuries, the Council kept us isolated and afraid of each other. Humans taught us to work together." A Centauri delegate added, "They showed us that diversity of tactics and thought is not a weakness, but a strength." In his laboratory at MIT, Frank Howard hosted a special guest. Keylorn, under guard but no longer in restraints, studied a display of Earth's military history. "I still don't understand," the former ambassador said. "Your species actively avoids war. Your literature calls it terrible. Your leaders speak against it. Yet you excel at warfare, better than any species we've encountered." Frank nodded. "That's what the Council never grasped. We fear war precisely because we understand its cost. We study it, prepare for it, and when forced into it, we fight with everything we have to end it quickly. The Council has waged war the same way for 1,000 years, Keylorn admitted. We forgot how to adapt." "That was your fatal mistake," Frank said. "Humans never stop adapting." On the moon, construction crews worked on the headquarters of the new Galactic Assembly. The curved building was designed by architects from 7 different species. Unlike the old Council chamber, it was open and transparent, with no hidden rooms for secret deliberations. Jack and Alice walked along the observation deck, looking out at Earth shining blue and green against the blackness of space. "The translation protocol you created changed everything," Jack said. "Without it, the Alliance would never have formed so quickly." Alice smiled. "It's simple, really. The Council manipulated language to control others. I just made it impossible to lie in the new system." Their communicators beeped simultaneously. A message from Admiral Rivera appeared. "Council delegation arriving. Requesting permission to enter negotiations." "What do you think?" Alice asked. "Will they actually change?" Jack looked at the stars. "They don't have a choice. Half their empire has already joined us. The old way of conquest is over." In orbit above them, ships from a dozen worlds patrolled together. Humans worked alongside aliens who, just weeks ago, had been strangers or enemies. "The Council's assessment was almost right," Alice said thoughtfully. "Humans do fear war. They just never understood why." Jack nodded. We fear it because we respect its power, and because we'd rather build than destroy. Beyond the moon, the first joint human-alien exploration vessels prepared to depart. They would map new worlds and meet new species not as conquerors, but as equals. The Galactic Council had declared that humans feared war, until they didn't. What they discovered instead was that humans feared wasting life on conflict when the stars offered so much more.